Bobby Wagner has returned home to the Seattle Seahawks, I believe, on a 1-year, $7 million deal. And I don't believe Bobby Wagner is too far north of 30 years old, although it feels like he's been in the league forever. He's one of the best we've seen, might still be the best linebacker in the NFL. He's now going to be with Devin Bush, Julian Love, and Draymond Jones, who also came over in free agency for the Seahawks. Do you like to see B-Wags back home in Seattle, Justin?
Yeah, because as y'all know, the relationship ended on bad terms
Very
initially,
bad.
and I was shocked to see him go back. So I'm glad. I'm always glad to see when franchise legends fix these things and come back home. But the reason beyond sentiment that I really like him going back to Seattle is because Seattle had a real problem on defense, and that was stopping the run. So when you add a legendary inside linebacker like Bobby Wagner, and then you pick up another one in Devin Bush, like you are clearly addressing the needs that you have on defense in terms of stopping and run to make you run, obviously at a Super Bowl in the NFC, because as you know, the NFC is not as loaded as they were in past. Like my Packers are struggling. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like there's no Tom Brady anymore. And
Whew.
no, like like you see the decline. The Rams are
Yep.
no longer the Rams. So like
Crazy.
reality is like you have a couple teams, the Philadelphia Eagles, San Francisco 49ers, and the Dallas Cowboys to contend with, and that you have a wide open conference. And especially getting those two players along with other players that they got in free agency, you have to deal with San Francisco twice a year. And if there's one thing that San Francisco is coming to do, as we all know, they're coming to run the ball. And
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not going to beat San Francisco if you don't have the ability, to plug those holes with two inside linebackers. And I think they couldn't have done any better by
Right.
picking up Devin Bush and Bobby Wagner.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I'm really, really here for the Devin Bush pickup as well. I remember a couple seasons ago, I want to say when the Steelers actually drafted Devin Bush, and I remember he went down with an injury, and that was major, really, really major for them at that point because he was playing a major role. I think that was the Steelers team that had went 11-0, if I'm not mistaken, and then had to play like 3 games in 5 days or 9 days or something like that. That was during the whole COVID season. But I remember Devin Bush definitely had some impact and just the moves that Seattle's making as well, knowing that they were 25th in points, 26th in yards, and they were the third worst rushing defense as well in the NFL. So clearly Bobby Wagner, we know he's one of the best run stoppers. He's also known for his good coverage ability as well. Putting Bobby Wagner in between the tackles on that front seven for Seattle, being back home underneath Pete Carroll as well. He's still got Jamal Adams behind him. That's definitely going to improve that third worst rushing defense that was the Seattle Seahawks last year. Again, they bring over Draymond Jones, Julian Love. It was a very solid pickup. And to know that Seattle at one point was a team that, it was a Legion of Boom. It was one of the best defenses in the NFL. And then it feels like it had fallen off. But wait a minute, Pete Carroll was a defensive guy, right? And then they're going to let Russ cook, and now anyone can throw the ball all over the yard on them. And it's very weird, but bringing back home a captain in Bobby Wagner, again, being under Pete Carroll, it's going to be great. The fans are going to love it. It's probably going to sell more tickets. And at the end of the day, the Seattle Seahawks will more than likely be better with Bobby Wagner back on the roster. And look how Seattle played last year. I mean, everybody thought that they weren't going to be a great team. Geno Smith comes out, wins comeback player of the year. Pete Carroll does his thing. And for a team to have a lot of pressure on them, an ugly breakup with Bobby Wagner, I actually said it. I remember saying it last year on the same day they had traded Russell Wilson and they had cut or either released, I think it's the same thing. They had released Bobby Wagner, and it was like, wow, this really feels like a true rebuild. This feels like a blow up because you just let go of your best offensive and defensive player in the same day. So I know it feels good for the Seahawks to bring him back over. And I actually saw a tweet from Cooper Kupp. Someone had resurfaced it last year. Cooper Kupp was like, "Thank God I don't have to play B-Wags in the division anymore." Now he's back home. So it's going to be really interesting to see Bobby Wagner back here. But it feels like he never left, I mean, you look at him being back in the uniform. I remember when the news broke, I was like, oh, damn. I guess Seattle did bring him back home, right? It wasn't a surprise, though. There was the rumors out there. And I know when he had went to the Rams, well, wait a second, actually. So Von Miller went from the Rams to the Bills. Okay, gotcha. I was thinking of all these linebackers that bounced around because Von Miller went from the Rams to the Bills, and then Bobby Wagner came over from the Seahawks to the Rams. So it was interesting to know that with Bobby Wagner being on a Super Bowl hangover team that they weren't very good at all. So I'm sure he feels good to be able to go back home